At 20 weeks, I was at home with my husband and I had a massive bleed. We didn't believe there was any way that I could still be pregnant. We came to emergency. It was the middle of the night and I was quite unwell, having lost what they suspected to be north of 3 litres of blood. All anybody was really concerned with was my safety, and there wasn't a great deal of talk through the night about pregnancy.
Meg had really significant bleeding. She needed to have a blood transfusion during the pregnancy. The number one person is always mum, and to make sure that she was safe and that she was well, both physically and emotionally, because it's very hard having a complicated pregnancy. At 20 weeks, babies don't survive. At 22 weeks, some babies will survive, but we managed by watching, waiting, having that blood transfusion with time. Every day matters.
So I met with the MFM team. They asked for my husband to be present. They wanted to talk about how serious we were about continuing with the pregnancy, because continuing with the pregnancy was only going to make me more and more unwell. We both decided that we wanted to continue with the pregnancy. So I committed to living on the antenatal ward for 8 weeks. Being on the ward saw the MFM team every morning and every evening that they did rounds. I would go down and have an ultrasound every couple of days and they'd measure the size of Kelly. We knew Kelly was going to be premature regardless.
We had a lot of watching and waiting during the pregnancy because she also had ruptured membranes, to really try and buy as much time as possible to keep her well and to try and prolong the pregnancy as safely as we could.
I started taking some medications to kind of like help him grow. So I was given some steroids, just to ensure that he was going to be born in the best possible health that he could be, albeit very early.
We were in constant communication with the maternal fetal medicine team about how Meg's pregnancy was progressing, and there were concerns with how Meg was doing, and there were also concerns with how the baby was doing as well. And both of those things on a daily basis had to be carefully weighed to make sure that we could get this pregnancy as far along as we could to give Kelly the best possible chance of survival and a healthy, happy outcome. Anytime a baby might deliver at a critical gestation somewhere between 22 weeks and 24 weeks is always a very difficult and challenging period, because we know that if a baby's born before 22 weeks, they are very unlikely, almost certainly not likely to survive. But when a baby gets to 24 weeks, there's a very, very good chance that that baby will do extremely well. And this is only a 14-day window, so a lot changes in a very, very critical few days.
It was just basically day by day, every 24-hour period that you can stay pregnant is a huge bonus. That was all that we focused on, staying pregnant for as long as we possibly could. We made it to 27 weeks and 3 days.
So at 27 weeks after Meg had been in hospital for quite a while with ongoing bleeding, she developed severe pain, and on ultrasound we were concerned that she'd had an abruption. With an abruption, the placenta is separating from the wall, and that can be potentially life-threatening for the baby and also for mum. We had a whole team of people ready to do a caesarean and look after Meg to try and ensure that she didn't bleed too much and that we could deliver baby in the safest way possible.
I remember being wheeled into theatre. I remember there being a lot of people in there. I could see my husband through a tiny little window in the corner, and I was put under anaesthetic fairly quickly. I woke up 16 hours later in the ICU. I met Kelly then later on that evening. Kelly was 24 hours old by the time I met him.
When Kelly came to us, he was born at 27 weeks and he weighed 1.2 kilograms. I thought he was quite remarkable when he came, having heard so much about him for the preceding couple of weeks and how carefully the pregnancy was being managed, and he actually did very, very well.
We were actually very fortunate with our NICU journey. Having known that Kelly was going to be premature, I feel like a lot of the work was done before the birth, even to make sure that Kelly was a really healthy birth weight. and to give him a fighting chance. We were told that it was going to be a roller coaster, that there would be, 10 steps backwards after 2 steps forward. Kelly seems to take the NICU in his stride.
When you consider that if Kelly had come a little bit earlier, if this pregnancy weren't so well managed before Kelly came along, his outcome would have been completely different. The fact that he was able to get to 27 weeks meant that he was born in really good condition. He had a very, very successful stay in the nursery and went home with his parents. For Kelly, we were able to help his transition to home by putting him through our hospital in the home care program.
We went home just shortly before Christmas, which we were absolutely thrilled about. I know it doesn't sound like an awfully long time, but 8 weeks worth of wondering if you are going to be leaving the hospital with a baby is quite a long time, and it plays havoc on your mind. The people are what get you through. They're what make the everyday of what seems like an impossibility more achievable.
Having the best ultrasound machines that are available really do help to diagnose what fetal problems babies have, so that we can ensure that the families get the right diagnosis. On the ultrasounds, the placenta looked like it was growing into the uterus with this placenta accreta. It can be a very hard diagnosis to make, but we were very suspicious of it, and indeed that turned out to be the case. It really does make a big difference in terms of the care that we can provide for the families.
When you consider that a lot of the babies that we look after are under 1 kilo, sometimes they're under half a kilo. These babies need high-tech equipment. They need top-line incubators, ventilators, monitoring equipment, and it needs to be perfect if we want to achieve an optimal outcome for every baby and have all of our babies go home happy and healthy with their families at the end of the day.
I hope that other women benefit from the care that the Royal is able to provide, and whether that's through people fundraising, bringing money into the hospital. Every single piece of equipment goes a really long way to helping families ultimately bring home babies.
Every day counts.
Your support will give our families more time, more care, more hope, better outcomes for both mother and babies.